Lao.
Right. Not too bad. Not too bad.
Goodness, you know, sports sounds so much better when you're here.
That's why we're back. As the Russians would say, spasiba. Thank
Merci. Merci. Spasiba. Well done, Bernard. News done. Sports done. Business done. All done. We're waiting for the... And the guests are already here. Can you imagine that? Yes. Kiharu MP. Ndindi Nyoro's in the house. And right next to him, Igembe North Member of Parliament, who's, by the way, first elected in Parliament back in 1992. Imagine that. There was a 10-year break in between, but this man here, Maoka Maore, is a veteran of the House. Both gentlemen, we're going to have a candid conversation tonight. No name calling, no other stuff. Just a candid conversation about the state of our nation. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JK Live. JK Live takes a break. We'll be back in a moment. And welcome back to Jeff Koinange Live here at Citizen Television. On the bench today, two legislators, and we're going to be talking about the state of the nation. Kiharu Member of Hon, Ndindi Nyoro is in the House, and also Igembe North Member of Parliament, and also Deputy Majority Whip Maoka Maore, one of the longest-serving MPs in the House. First elected back in 1992. Wow, you've been around for a minute.
Yes.
Karibuni sana waheshimiwa.
Asante.
Good to see you all. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Let's have a nice, candid conversation. No mudslinging, no low blows. Let's just have a conversation. So, Mheshimiwa, let me go to you first, because Kirinyaga is not too far from Murang'a County. And the latest news, Kirinyaga County Governor Anne Waiguru has shifted, like the mountain, like the slopes of the mountain, she has shifted to UDA. What do you think prompted her?
Thank you very much, Jeff, for having us this evening with Mheshimiwa Maoka Maore. As you rightly put it, it's really a privilege, because when Mheshimiwa Maoka Maore joined Parliament in his first term, I was actually in class 7 in primary school. And therefore, agility and experience on one table is a great thing.
It's a good one. Class 7.
Class 7.
Yes.
And on the issue of Governor Waiguru, as you know, Jeff, we are already in the transfer period in terms of the politics is concerned. And every politician has to look at their interest and the interest of the people they represent. But I want to tell you that in terms of UDA, you only just highlighted the issue of Anne Waiguru. But if you go backwards, you'll see that every single day, including today, we have been receiving defectors from various political parties. Because as you know, UDA is a new party. It's not a parliamentary party in terms of definition, because it's new. It is, we formed it after the 2017 general elections. But in terms of the membership of the elected leaders subscribing to the UDA, the UDA, we have around 155 members of parliament. That is the National Assembly and the Senate. The other party that is second is actually ODM, at a distant second, at around 70 members. The third one is the remnants of our former party, the Red Party, that is not just withering, but almost non-existent. They are now 23, and of course many of them are scampering for safety, and will be receiving many more in the coming days.
Okay, so
one of the reasons,
yes,
Jeff, people are coming to our party UDA is because of our conscience policy of the bottom-up, well exemplified, easy to understand, and practical, where we want to move as a Kenyan people by including everyone to be participants of the growth of our economy. So Anne Waiguru, as of course I believe, read the ideology of UDA, understood it, but more importantly, they say politics is local. When they say politics is local, what that means is that, Jeff, the most optimistic people I know in this world are politicians. But also in the same measure, the most calculating. most of the politicians, they may fail because of other reasons, but none, or maybe a very small proportion, would fail by neglecting the direction that the people are going. So Anne Waiguru, I'm sure he saw, she saw the direction of the people of Kirinyaga and made the right decision. But lastly also, as you know, Jeff, prior to the 20th of October, that is the Mashujaa Day, the current PS of Interior, you know his home area is Kirinyaga. He had spent around 90 days in Kirinyaga, mopping up and trying, of course, to mobilize, prepare the ground for the politics of the in support of the party he leans towards. And it is so sure, and it's so every Kenyan knows that he was preparing the ground, of course, for the humiliation of the deputy president, because we have the intel from the ground ourselves. He was trying to prepare that national day to be a day of settling political scores. Most of the people had been mobilized. Some of them, majority, were paid. They were given cards to get to Anguru Stadium. Of course, he thought, based on the allegiance to him and the party he supports currently. Fortunately, our people are business people, Jeff, and you know that. Yourself included. Hatuwezi wacha pesa. They took the money. They got into Anguru Stadium, but hauwezi fugia kitu yuko roho ya mtu.
Okay.
You cannot be able to restrict the people from getting out what is in their hearts. Okay, and therefore the people were very jubilant when they saw the person they support.
Let me ask
and
you.
From there, I am sure it was a clear message to every politician.
Okay, Mheshimiwa, look, Governor Waiguru was considered very close to the president. We all know that, right?
Yes.
Is this a move she will live to regret, or what are your thoughts about her moving, shifting?
Well, I can assure you, I was in Wanguru Stadium. And from the arrangement that was there, the crowd that did cheer the governor of Kirinyaga was somewhere in the far right corner, which was barely audible to convince anybody that they were excited about Governor Waiguru. Now, unless she wishes to ride on the crowd of the deputy president, which was the rest of the stadium, then that one we can understand. But for Governor Waiguru to state that she's following the people, I'm sure when those people came, whoever is their leader, it is not Governor Waiguru. I want to assure you of that. Even the people who are receiving her, they are not receiving her to salvage her. They are picking on her because they know her vulnerability, and being vulnerable just to lead her into a slaughterhouse. Because this is an investment of the last 4 years, let's say, by the governor and her competitors. So they have invested heavily in the Tanga movement. They have not been investing in that movement to just pass it on to Governor Waiguru. So my belief, a good leader of their name will never follow a mob. You lead people into the direction you feel they should go as a leader. I have rarely heard of people who say, oh, let me follow my people. When you hear a leader saying that, that's a hypocrite. They know what they are doing. They are leading the people, but they want to pretend that these people are behind me. That's what a leader does. I can tell you, I have been in politics, as you are saying, long enough. At a time when I attempted in '92, when the DP wave was serious in Meru, and trying to convince them to vote for DP, they just said, no, you just watch your mouth. So we went ahead, they voted for actually Kanu, in my place, when the rest of the Meru and the Mount Kenya were voting for DP. The same thing happened in 2002, when the entire wave in Meru was a NAC. They voted for myself to Parliament and Uhuru Kenyatta in Kanu. So I can tell you, when you hear somebody saying, I'm following my people, that's the face, Nasura ya hypocrite, number one.
Mheshimiwa, let me ask you this. Now that Waiguru has moved over to UDA, she has come into, you call it the party, where there's another strong contender who has already declared her intention to run for governor. We're talking about Ngirichi.
Yeah.
She's already announced. So who's going to be the UDA flag bearer in your thinking?
Allow me first to respond to my colleague Maoka Maore in terms of that the leader who actually dictates the direction that people take.
I have no.
And I don't blame.
He has put my hand into my mouth.
I don't.
You lead, the people follow, not to dictate.
You lead?
Yes.
I don't blame him because, as you heard, he joined politics some way time back.
When you were in class 7.
And in 1997, only KBC was the only source of information for many folks in our villages. And therefore, the leader would only listen to KBC because only the leaders owned a TV and probably even a radio, and they would take the information to the people. Unfortunately, the era in which we are living in and we are being elected, the people are much way ahead of us. Many times I go to my village and I get my grandmother already knows what is happening in Nairobi by the time I arrive there. And therefore, the current dispensation and the period at which we are living in, I think the roles have changed. You have to work together with your people, and you cannot work in isolation. Number two, I think that is the difference between, and the reason why we left our former party. Because when we say we believe in bottom-up and not trickle-down, not just a matter of economic ideology. It is also a political ideology. Political ideology where it is not the voice of the leader that takes precedence. You start from the bottom. And by the way, our constitution, that is why it is very present in terms of its articulation of issues, talks about public participation. Even in our Maedeleo, Jeff, we do public participation because we want to get the needs from the ground, not dictated by the leader.
Okay,
to go to the question that you...
Are you going to answer my question?
Yeah, to go to the issue that you raised about Governor Waiguru and my good friend, Girishi. There are even other candidates, Jeff, maybe you are not aware, even in the same race. Garnering for the UDA ticket.
Yeah, but those two, those two will be the leading ones. You know this.
I want to tell you this, Jeff. Any serious political party, and especially a serious political party like UDA, have got something called nominations before elections. Nomination is where we tell the people, nominate the serious candidate and the candidate you want for them to become your governor. Including in Kiharo, Jeff. I'm not alone in UDA. I've been in Taga, so to say, for the longest time. I've been arrested because of my affiliation. But we are not grandstanding and saying that because we are given so much, then we have to receive so much. We are a democratic party. And by the way, Jeff,
so
you may not be
saying there'll be no direct nominations.
You may not be knowing the definition of UDA. It is United Democratic. Not the other one, Democratic of Origin, that there is no democracy in there. UDA is a democratic party. And you can take this to the bank. Even our party leader, William Ruto, does not have the ticket. The tickets of UDA will be given by the people of Kenya through credible and fair nominations.
You're laughing. Why are you laughing?
No, you know why I'm laughing with my brother here? There are some things you say for the purposes in political science 101. They call it demagoguery. You just talk straight the things you think people want to hear. If you say bottom-ups is a political theory, maybe it's an economic theory. We know Adam Smith, 1776, he wrote The Wealth of Nations. In between, there have been other political theorists, from Thomas Sankarango in between to Lenin to Friedrich Engels, Karl Marx. Somewhere in between 1776 and today, they have not brought a booklet with a paragraph that can describe political theory or philosophy of governance that you can call this bottom-up. Because when you call a mob and they excite it, in the evening, after you have excited that mob, what answers do you have, specifically economic theory? Because if you talk about helping Mama Mboga, today Youth Fund, if you take 2, 3, 4, 5 youth, they register a group. In Maegembe North, last 2019, I brought the Youth Fund CEO there. We have 300 groups, 100,000 each, 30 million. So those are the kind of things you can talk, economic policies which are already in place. So in theory, you know, it's good to get a sentence or two, not where you come and you want to excite me or excite the audience that you have a theory which you want to govern with. When he says our polity, we began it 4 years ago. 4 years ago, 2017, it is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta who was elected on in Jubilee to implement a mandate he was given. Now, a splinter group started within Jubilee into 2022 and beyond. Yet we are in between 2017 and 2022. So surely if we are talking about honest politics, you go and implement a mandate you've been given. When that time expires, you have no problem. And because I remember when we met somewhere in Sagana in January, my brother didn't want to come. 29th January, the president met the youth. Wakamwambia, lakini tulisikia maneno yako ya 10 yangu na 10 ya your brother. What is happening? The president was very categorical. Akasema mimi sina shida. Those things, if they happened there, yangu 10 iliisha lini. So when he says they began this movement in 2017, it's when, 2018 actually, January after the handshake, is when they actually caved off. And if you agree on caving off, then we begin a debate, then we are having a sober debate.
Mheshimiwa, bottom up, you heard what he said?
Yeah, I heard. First of all, Jeff, it's good for us to get the facts right. Adam Smith was not a political philosopher. He was an economist.
And you're an economist too.
And therefore, whatever he brought forth was an economic theory, not as being articulated by Mheshimiwa Maoka Maore as a political theory. And if Maoka Maore has studied political science and even political economy, he should be knowing that political theories and especially political economy is dynamic in nature. Because the era at which we live in now is different from last century. It is also different from the other century. And it therefore keeps evolving. It keeps evolving, and that is why we have so many economists, and none is absolutely right. There is no economist in the world who is absolutely right or wrong, because it depends on the situation. Coming to the bottom up, you know, it's good for when you call us to this kind of show. I have come to articulate what I believe in and what I subscribe to. And it does not augur well for a leader to just keep talking about other people's ideology. Because when you give us an opportunity, I'll be articulating bottom up. Maoka Maore can articulate their economic model. What we mean with bottom up, Jeff, is that for the longest time in our politics, majority of the citizens of Kenya have only just been passive participants in our economy. Bottom up, we talk about having everyone on board to become an active participant in our economy. And there are various issues that we are looking at. Number one, Kenya is predominantly an agrarian economy, where most of the jobs are actually based in agriculture, either in terms of raw agriculture, value addition, etc. We are looking at adding value into that, adding productivity in terms of we can change crops, adding productivity by helping our farmers through inputs, through value addition, through markets, and such other things. We are also talking about the informal sector. Jeff, and I told you that the other time I was here, but it's good for me to repeat for emphasis. If you go to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, especially last year, they listed that there are around 15 million hustlers. I would call them so, people in the informal sector. When you talk about 15 million Kenyans, Jeff, 6 million of them are licensed. They are informal sector, informal, so to say, because they are licensed. The government knows they are there. They pay taxes, and they have a surplus of around 50,000 shillings per month. The other 9 million, Jeff, have got a surplus of only around 3,000. Most of them are unlicensed. When we talk about bottom up, we mean that we can uplift the 9 million Kenyans, and especially if you only do that one thing, uplift the 9 million to come to the bracket of the other 6 million, we debase our economy by 40%, Jeff. Our economy moves from $100 billion to just around shy of $150 billion. That is what we are calling bottom up, uplifting everyone, moving together as an economy, in contradiction to the current status of affairs. In Kenya now, every time, Jeff, if you look at the inequalities in Kenya, they are simply because our economy has been inverted. Pesa inatoka juu, trickling down to the people. Of course, majority of that money never reaches the intended destination. And therefore, Jeff, we have a conscious economic model. And I think Mheshimiwa has got time to tell us what the alternative they have. And when you give me time, of course, I'll continue giving more facts on our model.
For Mheshimiwa response, real quick, but you've been part of that government that you call trickle down. Have you not?
Jeff, you know, sometimes it's good for you to talk like a person who lives in Kenya. I am sure you don't come from the moon to host JKL. You live here in Kenya. You know that the government that we elected is not the government ruling our country. And by the way, when you see even the likes of Junet Mohammed telling a cabinet secretary that the government they want to form, that will be seeing it because maybe it was symbolic using Mutahi to many of the Kenyans out here, that will be seeing that government in Viusasa, Jeff. It is the issue of inclusion that you are talking about, that we want to build a country where everyone is included, Jeff, where no one is left out, and so that we continue running away from the kind of diabolic sentiments that we saw from the likes of Junet.
Okay, Mheshimiwa, look, look, you all are part of the government. You have been.
And by the way, Jeff, sorry, because I didn't answer your question correctly. I was talking about Junet and what he said.
Yeah. For the most part, he said he was misquoted. Junet is
I'll give you time,
himself.
I never answered the question.
Hold on, he's not here to defend himself, so you can address him in your parliament or wherever you see him next.
Okay.
But let me ask you this, weren't you a part of this government?
Yes. But the problem we are facing in Kenya today, the time he is saying that we got into leadership, at least that time we and the people who are focused about something called patriotism and some little ethics in sticking to what you are in. If you read even our political parties act, when you are in a party, because they are the ones who showed us in 2018 that it is possible to run away from your party and fight it. So by the time we were resisting, when they were calling at Kielewek and then they went into Tangatanga, we were actually trying to sustain the government using some members of the opposition. What Junet said, they have made it now something to help them incite and excite people, but I can assure you that is not here nor there. When you hear somebody going to Nyanza and he says, when we take, surely if you take the government, if Raila takes over, it will go to Nyanza. Just like when they take the government, they will be trooping to Sugoi. So, hii maneno ya Sugoi na Nyanza is all the same. Only that they think by using that thing of Junet, there is a section maybe of Mount Kenya. They can excite or incite against both the president and maybe Raila Odinga. 1. 2, when he says about the bottom up, then he is worried that we are debating it. It is important to interrogate a new idea who has come. In the unlikely or unfortunate event they were to be in power, we know what we are getting into. You know, you never know. You cannot be debated if you are a nobody. If an elephant steps on you and a fly, you will tell the difference. So these guys, they are serious contenders. That's why when they say bottom up, it is some of us who have a duty to look at the country on the face and tell them this is a very dangerous thing. Don't touch it. We are used to running affairs this way. Now, if they can manage to install enough rebellion, that is politics.
And yet they say,
yes,
for ground, mambo ni different.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. If they can manage to do that, but which ground are we talking about? If you just go and look for every MP, you go and carry you across in your constituency. Your ratings is per your polling station, per ward, per constituency. It is not a mob.
But let's face it, Deputy President William Ruto is drawing the crowds. He is drawing wherever he goes.
I have not created doubt on that. I have not created a doubt. The question is where? They targeted Mount Kenya for the last 7 years. That the people who wanted to be near the president could not be allowed. They have to go through the deputy president. Those were leaders from Mount Kenya. A few of us who resisted during the nominations, they saw fire. Some of us survived. Now, when you have been there, and I will give a quick example of what happened. 2007, when Raila Odinga went to Eldoret looking for support of the Kalejins or the voters in the Rift Valley, aliambiwa wacha kutusumbua. Follow who you, we are going to be behind you. And for sure, they did it to a man. 2013 come. When Uhuru did a handshake with Ruto. He went to Nakuru and the other place where they were negotiating. He was told the same thing. Don't bother yourself, follow him, then we will be able to do the job. And they actually did it. But immediately after 2017 election, the height of bad manners began, where he went through the nominations, entered into the bedroom of Mount Kenya, picked on those who would be nominated and those who would be in parliament so that he can start a 2022 choir. Now that choir, he has been using it very perfectly until he has the guts of insulting the president last week and saying, wow, ni matapeli. But when he goes to Kirinyaga, it speaks different. When he goes to the other day, he says, Uhuru showed me how to climb Mount Kenya. It was very much sarcastic and mockery. He was not shown. Because it is not Uhuru who went to Rift Valley to look for votes for himself. He went through Ruto. But Ruto never wanted. It's good to conclude perfectly. It is him who wanted to come into the mountain, incite the youth and the mobs there, mess up almost everybody who was a credible leader. Just name them. You don't have any experience of them from Mount Kenya, emanating from 2017 elections. So that kind of scenario is what my brother here is celebrating. That they have gone, they have gotten now to the mountain, they know the map of the mountain, they don't need Uhuru Kenyatta.
Mheshimiwa. Jeff, allow me, you cut me short before I concluded my point. The reason why why I was giving the analogy of Junet, I was trying to explain the fact that even when you talk about whether we are in government or not, because you asked that we are in, or you post that, but we are in that government. I want to tell you that the government that we elected in 2017 is not the government ruling now. That is why we have the likes of Akina Junet with the audacity of even telling a cabinet minister, as they were politicking in Kisii, that even the government they are seeking will be seeing it in Viusasa. Jeff, if you live in Kenya, you know for sure that the deputy president you elected in 2017 does not have roles. The roles have been taken by, of course, a cabinet secretary, and some roles have been taken by the former prime minister or the opposition leader. And therefore, you cannot conveniently come and tell us we are in government, and for sure you know, for example, myself and many of our colleagues, we were in committees that would help the government policy move forward. But of course, that was decimated by the handshake and the entire shenanigans around what handshake had. And therefore, Jeff, strictly to say, we are not in government. And those who are in it should carry the whole baggage of that government.
Real quick, I had a train of thought which you just destroyed right away.
Maybe it's about the deputy president.
Yeah, there's ground.
Yeah.
When they say kwa ground, mambo ni different.
Yeah.
And the deputy president did say, the quote, the president taught him how to climb the mountain.
Jeff, in 2012 or prior to 2012, President Uhuru Kenyatta decided to vie to be president of Kenya. He looked around for somebody that would deputize him and especially bring the political clout he needed then. The person he found suitable is none other than William Ruto. They came together, they became brothers who would wear the same shirts, and to be fair to them, they tried to do some work in the first term. Most of the roads that the president read in the 20th of this month were actually built in the first term. Most of the projects were actually done in the first term. But forget about the projects, the character of the men. The character of the men that Maoka Maore is talking about has been the same since he was MP for Eldoret North. He's been going to churches, he's been going to Harabes, and maybe those are the characters and those are the qualities that actually endeared Uhuru Kenyatta to get William Ruto to be his deputy. Unfortunately, after 2017, it seems there was already a predetermined plan to undermine the deputy president. It seems it was calculated way before. Because, Jeff, when we went for our first parliamentary group meeting, the president we actually elected, for me, was very different from the person we thought he was. And it was the first day that we met as elected leaders. And that is a clear, that cements the fact that the president had already long decided that the second term will be different. But Jeff, honestly speaking, how do you want to turn the character of a man just because he's seeking to be president of Kenya? William Ruto, as he keeps saying, was a very good man to Maoka Maore and the others in 2013. He was exemplary when he helped the president, that is Uhuru Kenyatta, get re-elected in 2017. All of a sudden, he becomes a very bad man when he wants to lead the country. And we need to be fair to each other as politicians. There is no politician who doesn't have ambition. And again, as I've said there before, this has been his character. This has been the motto of the man ever since he got into politics. And therefore, all these other sideshows around disrespect, blah, 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 are neither here nor there. There is no person who has been loyal to his boss than the deputy president. It is there for everyone to see. It is actually the president who betrayed his deputy. And that is why majority of the people who were actually in Jubilee, we could not live in that deceit. Majority of us. Ask yourself, Jeff, we can come here and pretend to be smart. Out of the people who were elected on the Jubilee ticket, how comes currently, as I said, and statistics don't lie, currently we are enjoying around support of 155 members of parliament. The remnants are just around 23, because people can see the facts.
Are you calling him remnants?
No, it's a good name to get, but the best thing to describe him, when he is allergic to history from the way, from his overtones, he has some allergy to history. History says, in the last, let's say, 10 elections in this country, every time you have gone into an election, 70% of the members of parliament go home.
10 elections
So
is like since
if you have
independence.
100 MPs, you will have 70% of baggage with you. Because I'm telling you, when he says crowd is different, he means for the other people, but he should let's check on his colleagues.
All right.
The reason being...
Gentlemen, I have to take a break.
Yes.
If you don't mind, I have to take a break. It's before 11, real quick, a real break. Come back and talk about also voter registration. Why is it so low? You say the youth are the future. How come they're not going for
They're
their
not excited about.
Why aren't they excited? Maybe you have an answer. And also going forward, what went wrong between these two? What went wrong? Like you said, they were there was so much bromance.
Yes.
Same shirts, same ties. What went wrong? Let's take a break. Keep tweeting, folks. We're having a candid conversation with KR Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro and also Igembe North Member of Parliament Maoka Maore. It's been in Parliament for like 30 years with a 10-year break in between. It's very young too. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Susan Tifu Kenya, the hashtag Jeggy Live. Jeggy Live takes a break. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Jeff Koinange Live here at Citizen Television. We're having a candid conversation about the state of our nation. Kiharu Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro is in the house, as is Igembe North Member of Parliament Maoka Maore. We're talking about the future of this nation. And gentlemen, a moment ago, we were talking about, look, moving forward. Mheshimiwa Nyoro, you talked about 15 million in the hustler nation, right?
Yeah.
You talk about a shift in the mountain.
Yeah.
And yet when you look at voter registration the last 3 weeks, and this could be an indicator or not, we don't know, it's very low.
Yeah.
Especially for a target audience or constituency that you want to grab, you being UDA. Why? How do you explain the low voter turnout?
The first thing is the apathy, that is especially with the youth, because they are dejected. The economic policies of this regime have not been favorable to the youth of Kenya. The standard of life in Kenya has dwindled, and definitely now people feel left out from the policies of the government and the decisions the government is taking. Unemployment rate in Kenya is just around 40%. Actually, we are among the top 20 in terms of unemployment rate in the world. And therefore, with that kind of a population, Jeff, you have to understand that there is a lot of voter apathy across, and especially young people. The president in Masujadi talked about CRB. What he does, he didn't tell the Kenyan people, is that the CRB he referred to, 14 million Kenyans are listed there. They are listed there because they have been victims of predatory borrowing, and especially that is based on fintech, most of them, because there is no space in the mainstream financial sector, have fallen prey to other predatory leaders. And therefore, that kind of dejection has generated the apathy that we are seeing across the entire country. And on the same, Jeff, because I'm talking about the economic policies, I wonder whether we actually have policymakers who look at the books of this current regime. And there is something that I keep referring to. I refer to it because when we talk about voter apathy, we are talking about the youth. These are people who have been indebted by this regime. These are people who are going to pay debts that they actually never enjoyed. And just give me a minute to just demonstrate. And so that you see where actually apathy is coming from. Jeff, the kind of debt that this regime has taken from 1.8 trillion they got from President Kibaki in 2012. Now we have ballooned that. If you add the debt that is GOK direct and debt that is guaranteed by GOK to other SOEs, it goes to in excess of 12 trillion Kenya shillings. I want to show you something so that you see why the Kenyan people are very angry, and especially the youth are very angry. It therefore means this country has borrowed a net of in excess net close to 10 trillion Kenya shillings. That is net borrowing. I want to show you what that kind of money can do so that you see why the Kenyan people are angry and dissatisfied with this regime. If you can take a pen and paper, Jeff, unisaidie kufanya hii hesabu. The president talked about...
Mheshimiwa, you too, you can take a temp.
No, I think the 12 trillion can guaranteed by which government? I thought Parliament put a ceiling.
Okay, give me the math.
The president talked about the tarmac roads that have been done by this regime for the last 9 years to just around 7,700 kilometers. If you times that by 2, it comes to 15,000.
Yeah.
I am just trying to show the Kenyan people the kind of money this regime have borrowed and whether we can actually clearly see where this money is. If we actually did double those roads, that is, instead of 7,700, we actually do 15,000. If you times that by 60 million per kilometer of road, which is AC, not actually raw volume, that this government is investing in, if you do the math, it comes to around 1 billion Kenya shillings.
900.
Because that's around 900 billion Kenya shillings.
Yeah.
We have 12 million households in Kenya. The households that had electricity prior to 2012 were just around 2 million. And therefore, we had 10 million more, according to the data by Kenya National Bureau of Statistics.
Okay.
The cost of connecting a person or a household to the national grid is 35,000 before you subsidize. If you times that, Jeff, you'll do the math, maybe it's around...
12 million times 10 million.
No, it can't be 10 million. We are talking about 10 million households times 35,000.
Okay.
That is 350 billion.
Yeah.
I want to demonstrate to you. If we say around the same, each constituency in Kenya, we have invested a 2 billion water project, meaning we have supplied clean water to majority of the households in Kenya. We talk about 2 billion per constituency, that's around 580 billion Kenya shillings.
Yeah.
We go to other tangibles that we should actually do with debt. Let's assume we build a 1 billion stadium in every constituency. That's around 290 billion per constituency. Let's assume we build a TVET to a level of a university at 1 billion per constituency. That's around 290 billion. If you add investment in our education in terms of infrastructure, and we assume every constituency got 1 billion in that period of time, that's another 290 billion. If you add all that math and try to imagine any other thing developmental that we ought to have done with the borrowed money, that money comes to around 3 billion Kenya shillings, Jeff, or just thereabout.
3 trillion.
3 trillion.
Not B.
Sorry, 3 trillion Kenya shillings. I've just told you the regime of President Uhuru Kenyatta has borrowed a net of 10 trillion. And therefore, I want to say this. The reason why majority of the Kenyan people are angry is because we have overborrowed, but unfortunately, most of the money that we have overborrowed has not come to this economy. Most of it is hidden out there.
No, I think
most of it has gone to our leaders.
I think you are getting off
and that is the kind of thing that is bringing around the inequality in our country, where we have many dejected youth and a few cream of people associated with government who, through state capture and through direct thievery, have actually benefited from our sweat.
Okay, Maoka
Maore. I think it is good when you use figures. Don't bombard people with the figures that don't add up. When we know in this country the debt ceiling put by the National Parliament Honorable Nyoro was in Parliament when we made it 6 trillion. We came and opened it up. Which date was that? Did it reach 10 trillion? In total, because for him he's saying about 12. So when those who are watching, they may think actually he's saying something substantive. But this is the incitement I was talking about.
But aren't you in the same parliament?
Yes, we are. We are, and there is a known ceiling. No. There is a known ceiling. It has not reached 9 trillion.
Our response.
It has not been opened by Parliament. They are the ones who authorize.
Okay, so
when it
6 trillion.
Yes, when it came to 6 trillion,
yeah.
If you go to the Hansard, you will not meet his vote there, or the people he is calling the majority within Jubilee objecting to it. Now, when you go and run with the, you say you run with the hares and the hunt with the hounds. This is tanga perfect, because they will not want to tell you they are a party to it. They will blame it on somebody else. And it's a syndrome. You know, the SME, they blame somebody else. SBE. That is the syndrome they are suffering from. They have been in this government. They have been a part of all this borrowing. They have been a part of those projects. When it is good, you heard the Deputy President talking about very nice and glorious things they have done in 9 years. He never complained like he is complaining. But wakitoka hapo, is the bad things about this government, borrowing by this government. They have been borrowing, authorized by Parliament, or authorized by Cabinet. Nobody has complained. But because when they go to some corners, then government and the president is different from them. When it is good for them, oh, this is a good government. We have done very well with my brother. We have done very well in the first term. We have done the roads. We have done the steamer. We have done the education. All that time is good. But when it comes now inciting the youth, telling them that you have a dynasty, and until when he went to his father's memorial in 2019, he said from now onwards, you stop this story of dynasty. And he himself realized it was reckless. It was going to bring down the country. Here they now turned it into a hustler versus the rest. Because when you go and tell somebody that you have a car or you have a home or a better house than the other one, that this one you have not gotten it rightly, it belongs to somebody else. It is a very bad policy in politics. Because I have said again, in the unfortunate event you end up being president, when you look at those people on their face, what will you tell them? How will you achieve what you are talking about? Yes, you have shouted your way, you have conned your way into leadership. You are calling other matapeli, but this is the pure conmanship. You con your way into power. After you are there, do you have a country to talk about? And that's the worry of everybody in this country. If in the unfortunate event, something happened, they confuse these youth we are talking about, and a substantial amount of them vote for them and they end up in power. Do we have the country called Kenya? Do we have it?
Okay, Mheshimiwa, real quick.
No, don't just think about it.
Okay. I get your point.
Do we have a country to talk about?
You are an economist.
In the first place.
Yes, Jeff.
We talked about a 6 trillion shilling budget before, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it was opened up and it reached 9 trillion at some point.
Yeah, Jeff.
Am I correct here?
Jeff, I thought one of the qualifications of being called to this kind of show is that you'll be able to give the Kenyan people facts. And especially when you hold a leadership position in the Parliament of Kenya. If Mheshimiwa Maoka Maore listened to me when I was tabulating that data, I talked about direct debt to GOK at around 8 trillion. You don't need to go far, Jeff. You just need to go to the Central Bank of Kenya website. You'll see that the direct debt that the government of Kenya owes, that is domestic and external debtors, is around 8 trillion. What Mheshimiwa Maoka Maore doesn't know is that there is other debts guaranteed by the government of Kenya to something called SOEs, state-owned enterprises. I want to give an example. Kenya Power has been indebted because 51% of Kenya Power, or majority of shares in Kenya Power, are owned by government. Kenya Power has taken up loans in excess of 100 billion. That money is guaranteed by Kenya Power. If Kenya Power doesn't pay that debt is accrued, goes to direct to the government of Kenya. Majority of the water companies in Kenya, many of them, from Muddy Water, even going down to other smaller companies, that is the last mile companies, in terms of the ones that connect water to the homes. Most of them are indebted. That debt is usually guaranteed by the government of Kenya. That debt currently is around 3.8 trillion Kenya shillings. If you add 8 trillion plus 3.8, it comes to 11.8 trillion, which is just around 12 trillion that I worked with. By the way, Jeff, in my mathematics, you can actually add the SGR at 350 billion. And we must not run away from facts. Maoka Maore cannot come here and claim that we are bombarding the Kenyan people with figures. Kenyan people are bright.
Nice.
They have phones in their homes. They can do the calculations. The calculations I've done, Jeff, and I want to repeat, the kind of money we've borrowed, just a third of that money ought to have tarmacked double the number of roads we've tarmacked. Every Kenyan home ought to have electricity. Every Kenyan home ought to have clean drinking water that is tapped, and the other tabulations that I gave. He also talked about, talking with both ends of the mouth. In terms of borrowing, we have been in government, and all the other rhetoric that is becoming banal with time. If you go to the same data, President Uhuru Kenyatta got this government when our debt, external and domestic, was 1.8 trillion. In 2017, that debt was 84.4 trillion. And therefore, the net borrowing in the first term was just around 2.6 trillion Kenya shillings. You can clearly see that after the second term, we have actually borrowed close to triple the money we borrowed in the first term. And therefore, we need to argue with facts, Jeff. Because facts don't lie. Figures don't lie. This second term of this regime has been shambolic. A lot of government money has been stolen. I have tabulated that for the Kenyan people to know that the money we can actually touch and see is less than a third than we have borrowed. Unfortunately, it is me and the majority of the Kenyan youth who are going to pay this debt for the many years to come. Just recently, you saw the government of Kenya signing off a Japanese loan which will be maturing in 60 years. Jeff, we are talking about the youth. You talked about the apathy in the elections. The whole thing compounds, and our economy gets battered. It gets battered, there is no employment, and therefore the entire cycle comes down crumbling.
And yet the president was quick to say the other day that he's done more in the since 2018.
Than 70 years.
Yes.
He was right. And his detractors, they are going to meet in the not so far off in the future. You will find that the issues that are being raised, you would think the member of parliament talking and his team, they are not in Jubilee. And with the date when they left Jubilee, they are the ones who know why. And how they intended to reinvent themselves, they also have an idea. So when I was talking about the figures being bombarded around, they are not worthy. If you pick on any one of them, you actually waste a lot of airtime. In the sense, they are not worth it. Because if you talk about the trillions he's saying between 2017 and today, the money borrowed is actually not much. Between 2017, it is actually the interest which has accrued on the previous debts. He will not want to tell you about the interest that has accrued apart from the Eurobond. Which are the ceremonies of signing loans apart from the one you saw the other day with IMF? Something just to support the budgetary support. It isn't there. But they will use those figures, and I'm telling you, it's just purely for the value of incitement and the value of excitement. Now, even the youth, they are saying they want to incite and excite. You can hear they are not interested in the vote. And then they want to blame somebody else. Instead of blaming themselves for creating that apathy, instead of blaming themselves for creating a dysfunctional government. Because I was in Chuka the other day, and I had some elders stand up and say, we want you to pick so and so as your running mate. I was with Raila there. And I just looked at them there, and I really pitied him and even prayed for this country. Because if there's something you don't want to hear in this country again, is an unfortunate relationship like what Uhuru has suffered from by having a deputy who comes from day one, he is plotting how he is going to take over.
You don't know,
Yes.
sure, you don't know that they were bromance, they was friends for a long time. But Mheshimiwa, I saw you shake your head for a moment there. I saw you shaking your head.
No, but it is true.
You know why I was
you don't want an unfortunate situation like that.
Go on.
You know why I was shaking.
But I didn't get enough time.
You
No,
got plenty of
Maoka Maore
Let me finish just
is my senior
by
in terms of
responding
years.
that.
He's your senior.
He's my senior in all respects.
No, we even respect each other. But
Unfortunately,
yeah.
he's falling short. And being a leader in parliament,
No. You have
ought
said
to
that
know
one for that time.
that the many
You are not amused by that leadership
Yes.
in the first place.
and the tabulations that I've given are factual. And if they are not factual, then that means that the government at which Maoka Maore is, I don't know, a whip or something,
So you
is
no, you see the
therefore-
mediocrity now.
is therefore
you see the
a government-
mediocrity we were talking about.
is therefore a government
To
of
be-
seat.
But he has a title.
Because
Yes.
the figures that I've given, I have lifted them. You know, this is not magic. If you have time, you can Google. I have lifted them from government itself.
How does that serve
And
your
the
cause?
fact is this.
How does that serve his cause?
Now, can I talk or?
Finish.
I give the tabulation of debt of this country, Jeff, because I know what majority of the leaders in Africa do. Majority of African leaders want to appease the population now for maendeleo and projects that are for the future. That's number one. Number two, majority of African leaders actually borrow to steal, something called development corruption. When you borrow and build a good road, you inflate the cost, people clap for you that you've done a credible job, you get no one to question you with hard figures like the ones I've given you, you run away with too much. I have tabulated that the government of Uhuru Kenyatta from 2012 or 2013 has borrowed even in excess of the limit set by Parliament, because actually the debt ought to have included the debt guaranteed. I've also tabulated what that money should do. I have tabulated so that we come out from the trillions and we speak to the Kenyan people that this regime has borrowed money, half of it, if they just stole half of it, they hide in safe havens. The rest they invest even here.
But Kenyans know who steals government money.
Can I finish?
They know.
If they just expended half of that money, we would be having the double of roads being constructed. Every household in Kenya ought to have safe drinking, clean water. Every home in Kenya ought to have electricity. Every constituency would be having a stadium. Every constituency would, I actually left out, a hospital worth $1 billion shillings. And I've tabulated real development because you should actually not borrow for recurrence. So the money I've given is in assumption, Jeff, listen to this, is in assumption that there is no development money in Kenya, that we purely invest in development from the borrowed money. Those are figures.
Now,
the other figures that I'm giving.
I have a quick question on that. Because the time is inordinate. What I need to him to explain, you look at Kenyans and tell them all those tales he is saying and ask them, would you please trust us to deliver on a more civilized, on a more gentle, on a more peaceful, on a more prosperous country, apart from what we have seen in the last 50 years. You know, there are some things people just jump for the sake of it. You are blaming a government for borrowing to do development. There is no government in the world which can develop without borrowing. We know that. Now, when he says about stealing, Kenyans, you look at them on the eyes and ask them who has been stealing your taxes. Go to the Auditor and Controller General. Go to the government scandals that we have. Who has been involved in it? You know, when you tell these lies, you better make sure they can be sustained. But Kenyans are not fools. They know who to trust.
Okay, let the man finish his point. Go on, Mheshimiwa.
Yeah.
So I was saying, Jeff, that the statistics that I gave even about unemployment rate are there, not just in paper. We can see them
40%.
on the ground.
We know that.
And on the issue of who you can trust, I have given just a snapshot of what the bottom-up is all about. We are very conscious about where the level at which our economy is at. We are also very, very clear in our mind about where our country should go. And I want to tell you this, Jeff. Part of the reason why our economy is so battered for the longest time, I gave you the example of the reason, is because we just entrust our economy to a few people above here. Majority of the youth, majority of the Kenyan people are just standers-by. They are just passive participants. They just sit there. They are some drivers of the economy. We want to harness every talent. We want to harness every ability of the Kenyan person, from the farmer to the hustler to the other person. so that we can take Kenya forward. Number two, you know, people keep throwing words about corruption. Can you trust this? Can you trust that? Jeff, let us be very clear to the Kenyan people. Let us be honest for the first time. I have only given the data about debt. The issues I have tabulated are real hard facts. Tell me, Jeff, without blinking of an eye, from the over 10 billion Kenya shillings borrowed by this regime, more than, or the big proportion of it having been borrowed in this second term, where is that money? There is no corruption that is more mega than that. And the major corruption actually, Jeff, let's be honest, because the Kenyan people know, the major corruption in this country is not hii ya polisi kuchukua shilingi kwa huyu na ama kwa yule. What has actually struggled our economy is something called state capture. Majority of the policies being passed, superintended by our leadership in parliament, they are just geared towards benefiting some private heads. And I want to give you some examples.
Of which you're a part of, right?
You know, Jeff, we are part of it.
You are.
But I want you to know this. In parliament,
he says they are a majority.
In parliament, we cast votes.
Yes.
And the majority, their way, the majority have their way. Even the debt ceiling he's talking about, if you go to the Hansard of the National Assembly, I am among the many people who voted against it. And therefore, let us lay the facts bare. Our country has been let down, number one, by state capture. Where we have a leadership of this country, you cannot differentiate when they are promoting private aids and public aids. And let us be honest to the Kenyan people. If you are a leader of a nation, you are elected by farmers, for example, milk farmers, and they bring a case on your table. On the other side, you are a processor of that milk. Which side are you going to favor? Number two, during President Kibaki's time, there was real money in our financial sectors. That is why our enterprise grew. That is why we had many real billionaires being created by President Kibaki.
And yet,
this regime...
And yet you criticized him.
Let me finish. Me, I never criticized Kibaki.
But what
this regime has been
I have a question here. I need to
by something called fintech. Those people, yes. 14 million Kenyans who are in CRB. I lose Safaricom because we own Safaricom as a public. It owns the public, the government of Kenya owns 35% of Safaricom. When Kenyans Fuliza and when Kenyans Mswari, is this the public that benefits? Who are these people that actually benefit from the predatory fintech borrowing?
2018.
I'm still in the state capture.
No, in January 2018.
Go on.
I want him to talk about his state capture in real figures. January 2018. Our national debt, when we were raising it towards the end of about April there, to raise it to 6 trillion when we were opening it up. If you go by now, it is yet to reach 9 trillion. But what he's saying about these other things are outright lie. Then government or GOK debt is usually tabulated, as he said it, both domestic and foreign. It includes those state organizations he was talking about. He knows very well. But what he needs to explain to Kenyans, between 2018, March 9, and to date, Kenyan government has not borrowed money worth 2 trillion. It has not reached there. When it reaches, they will come to parliament for us to open. But he wants to take advantage of this, and it's uncensored debate. People can just...
Jeff, I didn't know we as leaders we can be that ignorant. Let me finish.
That is your problem.
Last year,
maybe you
last year,
let us down.
Maoka Maore actually lives in Kenya.
In the sense
he ought to have known that there were some money...
No, use figures.
I think you both
I finish my point?
visitors to Jerusalem.
No, let him use figures that have dates. In between 2017 and today, how much have we borrowed?
But you were asking the question,
yes.
Who has let us down?
Yes.
I think it's all our leaders.
We have been let down.
Why can't you leave the government and do and they say we are outsiders instead of just hanging on there?
Let's take a look at some tweets on the magic wall. Why don't we?
I ought to have given that point, Jeff.
Hold on. Okay. Let's get some feedback. Edwin says, kindly ask Ndindi Nyoro, what would their UDA possible route to 2022 in the possible scenario that they don't form the government?
Let me give you a few issues because I am very optimistic that the Hustler Nation and UDA is going actually to defeat the former Prime Minister with a bigger margin than 2017. He had around 6.7 or thereabout million votes. Our side then had around 8.2 million votes. You know, people keep saying he's climbing the mountain to get a certain percent, ostensibly because they imagine that the votes he got are intact. Let me tell you something, Jeff. The coastal region, the counties of the coastal region, gave the former Prime Minister around 845,000 votes. That's around 84.5% in 2017. I want you to go to coast and tell me whether you see those votes now. The Lower Eastern, the 3 counties, they gave the former Prime Minister an 83% lead in 2017. Go there and tell me whether you see those votes. In Western, the Western counties, they gave him around a whooping 86% cumulatively. I want you to go to Bugoma, go to Kakamega, and all the counties of Western, and tell me whether you see those votes. I want to tell you one thing. Majority of our votes are intact then. And you can tell me where you see a dent.
And you're saying...
But we have made a lot of inroads.
Are you saying first round defeat?
Not just first round. A thrashing, decisive defeat.
Let me tell you the problem we are facing in this country. We have a section of our politicians. You know, they usually say, not even the wisest philosopher who can tell when a cockroach is pregnant. These people, already they know the people's votes that are in their pockets, how they will get them. So then why was the purpose of going to an election? Because surely what he is saying, they are on dynamics. They have been campaigning alone for 4 years. That is not what he is not saying. Now, when you get mobs for 1 year, year in, out, you may actually think you planted them the way they always say, hey, Mungu wako na sisi, Mungu wako mbinguni. As if the Mungu is not for us all. Just the same thing with the politicians.
Okay, Clara Kagure is asking, ask Maore, shouldn't these MPs supporting Raila Odinga and defending the promises he is making be pushing to actualize these promises now, since they are in the actual ruling wing of the government?
No, this fella is not saying which promises. You say promises based on when you are elected. There is no time Raila Odinga has woken up and said he is a partner or a co-president or in Jubilee. Just look at the cabinet today. When you look at it, which of them is an ODM member? There is none. So that kind of question is misplaced.
Okay. Sir Charles says the true test of UDA, a.k.a. Hustler Nation, is in the nomination. That and the choice of running mate will make or break DP William Ruto's State House bid. Mheshimiwa, do you agree?
Yes.
We are abreast to that, and I can guarantee all the hustlers of Kenya that UDA will conduct above-board, fair, and credible nominations. And therefore, there is no cause of alarm. About Mheshimiwa Maoka Maore, talking about we are like counting votes in our pockets. You know, they keep doing their politics in the boardrooms. We go to the people. And as a politician, you can tell the dynamics when you're on the ground. And therefore, the projections that I'm giving are not based on Twitter and me in boardrooms here in Nairobi. I have been to those areas, and I know what I'm saying. And take this to the bank, Jeff. Call me here next year. We are going to defeat the former Prime Minister with a bigger margin than the last general elections.
Remember, we will replay that tape. Mutua Lloyd is saying, ask Maoka Maore, Honorable Maoka Maore, should tell Kenyans, other than the 6,000 shilling monthly survival stipend to youths, what else are they going to do? Be specific.
Well, I think what we are facing here, the time when Raila Odinga is going to be a candidate, we cannot respond to that. For now, he has actually been doing the Azimio.
Are you saying he's not going to be a candidate? Come on.
No. I'm saying when he does, when that time the manifesto will come. What we have now is the Azimio about the economic prosperity of this country, about the unity of the country, about to revamp the economy specifically from the ruins of the Tangatanga of Wing in the Jubilee government.
Okay, so what you're saying is until he announces, yes, you're not going to mention anything?
Yes, for now, let us hold on.
Mwalimu Mathayo Wilfred, I am a youth. In fact, I may not vote because this government is not working closely with youth. Let them contribute, or rather, let them continue borrowing. But the fact is, qua ground, vitu ni different.
I just gave you the figures, Jeff. Not just government borrowing. I think you cut me short when I was talking about a very serious matter.
SOEs
about fintech borrowing. That youth, and many of them are in CRB. They are borrowing Fuliza at 6% per day. That is over 2,000% per annum. Tell me, Jeff, where in the world can you get that kind of rate? And the number 2 question is, it is good to borrow, that's fine. But even after we borrow, who is benefiting and who is milking Kenyans? 6% rate per day. Who are benefiting? Safaricom has an obligation, by the way. We owned Safaricom as government because 35% is owned by the taxpayers. They ought to tell the Kenyan people when they Fuliza and when we try to promote this fintech borrowing, who actually benefits.
Let me ask
because
you.
I believe that is one angle of state capture.
Let me ask you this as an ordinary guy. Why would you borrow then?
Yes.
Would I force you to borrow? Does Safaricom force you to borrow?
You know, Jeff, we cannot afford to be simplistic. It is the role of government of the day to actually have deliberate policies of taking an economy forward. This government, because some of our leaders are benefiting, have found it safe to keep on imprisoning Kenyans into this kind of borrowing, which is not actually investment kind of borrowing, but predatory consumerism, because they are taking advantage of the many jobless Kenyans who have to Fuliza every day and Mswali every day. But the critical question remains, who benefits from this borrowing?
Edwin Nyakweba is saying bottom up or trickle down or side to side or whichever model can work. The problem is not the model. The problem is the drivers of the model. That is the leaders. Are they worthy? Your guess is as good as mine.
I think go to the next is better that way so we can get. That one is, it's clear.
But that's a good point.
It's clear.
It's the leadership. It's
Yes.
the people driving
Yes,
this.
yes.
And you are both part of it.
No,
You're
no,
part
no,
of
no,
it.
no, no.
You've been there for 30 years.
Yes, let me tell you why I have been. When you are a leader, you are supposed to be trusted by the things you say and the things you do. But when the things you say are usually different from what you have been doing or even who you are, it becomes a crisis. We have a national crisis today because our leaders don't have ethics. Because the things people were saying 3 years ago or even last week are not the same things they are not consistent. Some of us, we survive because we tell the truth. If I know I will not be able to deliver on a project in my constituency, I will never hold a microphone and promise it for the purpose of getting elected. I tell you the truth, you decide. That's my policy. The problem we are facing about the leaders you have just talked about, and I ask you, when you hear, because I know it is going to be a 2-horse race, it is not manslinging somebody. Because I saw like the things the Ndindi Nyoro and his colleagues talked in Kiamba. You have somebody describing things that are not supposed, they are actually childish in politics. They besmirch Junet for what he said, but they themselves, the things they say, you wonder, are they in a church? These people actually need prayers. They did not go to pray in a church, but beyond there they need prayers because of the kind of things they will say about you as a candidate or me as a candidate because I'm not with them. It is not fair. We need an ethical contest. If you come to Meru, come and say, if I become president, I will be able to help you on Mira. I will help you with your farming. I will help you with your education. And there were things he's saying about electricity and others. Not try to just to fight other people or insult other people, calling them Muganga. What do you mean by Muganga in politics today? Muganga is for what? Why would you even mention that one Muganga? Supposing you are called your adjectives, where would you go? Because nobody who doesn't have adjectives.
Well, the shoe's on the other foot. 4 years ago, you know, your side was calling them Mugangas.
Yes.
Shoes on the other. But Mheshimiwa, your thoughts going forward?
My thoughts going forward.
And keep it brief.
I'll keep it brief. When President Kibaki promised free primary education, basic education, in 2002, if my recollection serves me well, Maoka Maore was in Kanu or afraid of Kanu. Majority of them said, let me use the current president.
Was in Kanu.
Let me not use Maoka Maore. He said that will not be possible. We have brought our agenda on the table going forward in 2022. We are very deliberate because we know economies grow invariably because of the leadership of the day. All the economies that have grown, they have not grown because they invented minerals or they got minerals in their land. South Korea, we are the same population, Jeff. We were at the same level in 1960. Currently, their GDP per capita is $30,000 per person. Here in Kenya, it's around $1,800 per person, per capita. This is a country that we are in the same level. The conscious, deliberate policies of the leaders then, and especially General Park, made the South Korea to be what it is today. Vietnam is another very good example. It has been in ruins, you know, about the American war in Vietnam. Currently, they have overtaken Kenya. They have around double our population because of the conscious, deliberate policies of the leadership there, and especially on a policy called China Plus One. Because of their proximity to China, they are trying to sell themselves as an alternative to many other corporations that actually do manufacturing in China. Our leadership in the country from independence, Jeff, going all the way, and especially to 2002, failed Kenyans. The fortunes that Kenyans made from 2002 to 2012 has been decimated by this regime, either out of will, out of state capture, or out of cluelessness. But I want to tell you, Jeff, we are clear-minded. And I want to promise the Kenyan people that we have a deliberate policy on getting the Kenyan youth into jobs. We have a deliberate policy of spurring our manufacturing sector, because we know economies grow on something called increasing returns and anything that encourages scale. The current economy in Kenya, and especially the agrarian one, Jeff, is not a modern economy because it is based on decreasing returns. We are focused, we have the energy, and we are going to deliver Kenya from the economic ruins that we have been left by this regime.
All right, Mheshimiwa, you get the last word since you're the senior most person here. Go on.
I think as we face a 2022 season, starting now, because we are actually on the countdown, people will be able to be asked just a simple question. When politicians come around your village asking for your votes, it's to do what with it. Because we have seen those who came in the last election, picked our votes, and when they went there, they never responded to our needs. They just went to prepare for 2022. And that is the unfortunate thing that happened specifically in the Mount Kenya region, whereby the leaders abandoned the electorate, whereby the leaders did not intend to fulfill any of the promises. They just were hanging on whoever helped them for those elections and the nominations, thinking that since so and so would never have made it, singekuwa hapa kama sio so and so, so they are actually paying a debt. Now, in the process of paying a debt, they are very eloquent at insulting the president. And that one is a curse that is going to be fall upon them. Because the president never elected the leaders. It is the people who elected the leaders. So they need to put them into account. When they show up over the weekends, they should not talk about the hustlers. They should not talk about how they are sympathetic to them. They are actually conmen. They conned them. Because they got elected on Jubilee. They went into something else. That's what you call a conman. So I pray for this country that in August 2022, we will get the country to shift and do a kind of a referendum on this kind of leadership. It should never happen again in our lifetimes.
Okay. Jeff, I cannot allow that to go away, because you cannot come here and bastardize leaders. And I want to use my example, because I'm on this panel as an example.
Yep.
Because let us not create this perception, which is now a banality. I follow and I support the Deputy President. I was elected by the people of Kiharu. I'm not trying to chest them or blow my trumpet, but I want to tell Mheshimiwa Maoka Maore, in all my words, there are tarmac roads ongoing because of the work I do in making budgets in Parliament and making sure that all Kiharu projects are there. There are water projects and irrigation projects. That is even national government. Let us come to the way we articulate and the way we expect our bursaries, our CDA.
Are you
Let me finish here, Jeff. It's important because it's not good to bastardize leaders.
But it looks like you're promoting.
Kiharu has got 112 public primary schools. Jeff, we agreed last time you'll come and fact check. Out of the 112 public primary schools, all the classrooms, 97%, 97 out of every 100, we have been able to transform all Kiharu schools. They look like academies. By the way, all the 97% are tiled. Tile huku chini. And therefore, and I have not told you that we have built 8 new secondary schools. We have built all the other issues that we do around CDF. And therefore, the reason why we support the deputy president is because we know exactly where he's leading the country next year. And because of his track record, I hope and I wish that the next time Maoka Maore comes,
he'll be leading it to the dogs.
tell us about the years that the former Prime Minister has been MP for Kibra. And I'll tell him about the years Hasla has been MP for Eldoret North. I'll remind him about his ministerial roles in higher education and agriculture. I'm sure from there, he'll have nothing to say.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it at that for now.
No, I agree.
You'll have to come back and debate. It's quarter to 12. We have to go.
Yes.
We have to go. Thank you, gentlemen. Wow. That's a lot of mathematics to bear for one evening, huh?
But I wish he can put it on you. He has a very good tweet thing. Let him put it there.
Put it on Twitter.
You'll get the responses and let it balance.
Thanks so much for joining us.
No,
folks.
if it can balance,
Yes.
then I will.
Every Wednesday, it's all about those 3 letters on the keyboard that follow each other. JKL. Thanks so much for being a part of the show. Good night. Good luck. I hope you learned something about numbers here tonight. God bless you, everybody.